Macmillan Audio presents The World Broke in Two, Virginia Woolf, T.S. Eliot, D.H. Lawrence, E.M. Forster, and the Year That Changed Literature, by Bill Goldstein, read for you by the author. For Joanne Goldstein, who was born in 1922, and for Blake West, who lived through it with me. Introduction. The world broke in two in 1922 or thereabouts. A quote from Willa Cather, not under 40. Some years are understood as pivotal in history: 1492, 1776, 1865, 1914, 1945, 1968. 1922 is a dividing line in literary history. The World Broke in Two tells the story of 1922 by focusing on four legendary writers: Virginia Woolf, T.S. Eliot, E.M. Forster, and D.H. Lawrence, who were all similarly and serendipitously moved during that remarkable year to invent the language of the future. Willa Cather began her 1936 book of essays, Not Under 40, with the melancholy remark about changes in literary fashion: the world broke in two in 1922 or thereabouts. Cather was thinking of the publication of Ulysses in February and of The Wasteland in October of 1922, and the ways in which those works seemed, all at once, to herald a new modernist era in which the form of storytelling she prized and had excelled at was no longer of signal importance. Her own novel of the war, One of Ours, was published in 1922 and won the Pulitzer Prize in 1923. But Joyce's novel and Eliot's poem and the coincidence of their publication dates had very quickly given 1922 a privileged place in the history of literary modernism in which she and her work seemed to have no share. She was a relic of an old literature, the value of which had not been preserved against the new literature that Joyce and Eliot represented. For Woolf, Eliot, Lawrence, and Forster, the literary apocalypse of 1922 had less to do with publication dates than with the personal and creative challenges that indeed broke the world in two for them in 1922. Woolf, Forster, Eliot, and Lawrence were, at the start of 1922, writers in deep despair, privately confronting an uncertain creative future. Each of them felt literally at a loss for words. None of these essential pillars of 20th century literature could foresee the work just ahead that was about to transform them as writers. The Wasteland was published in 1922, but the drama of the year for Eliot had less to do with the poem's appearance than with how close he had come to not finishing it or having it published at all. Renewal came as each in turn experienced a sudden, if still tentative, spark of vision. In early spring, Woolf thought to write again of a character who had appeared in her first novel, The Voyage Out, published in 1915. This was Clarissa Dalloway. Forster, picking up the abandoned manuscript of what was to become A Passage to India, made his first significant progress on a work of fiction in 8 years. Both of them began to read the first volume of Proust's À la recherche du temps perdu, in French, which inspired their work and on which both drew as they continued to work through 1922 and beyond. Lawrence started Kangaroo, his neglected but perhaps most autobiographical novel, written at light speed during his 100-day sojourn in Australia that spring and summer. And Eliot, stopping in Paris for 2 weeks with Ezra Pound, began editing his poem into a 450-line distillation of his years of intermittent and sometimes aimless work. By the end of the year, the blank pages facing them in January were filled. They'd found the words, or were making new words, new forms, new styles, reworking the words into new shapes. Rivalries and jealousy, including with James Joyce and the specter of his Ulysses.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?